The first time anyone really noticed her, it was for all the wrong reasons. In the crowded hallways of Westbrook High, she was the one people looked through, not at. She was small for her age, with thin arms and a pale face that always seemed a little tired. While other kids her age were running around, shouting, pushing each other, she moved slowly, carefully, like she was made of something fragile. And in a way, she was. Her name was Anya, and Anya was sick. Not in a dramatic way that got her sympathy or attention. It was a quiet kind of sick, the kind that lived in her chest and made itself known every time she tried to do something normal. Climbing the stairs to her third period class wasn't just exercise for her. It was a battle. By the time she reached the top, her breath would be shallow and quick, her hand pressing against the wall for support, her face even paler than usual. People would pass her by, some shooting her a quick, worried glance, most not noticing at all. She had gotten used to that. Invisible was safe. Invisible meant no one expected anything from her God. Her life had a rhythm to it, a quiet, lonely beat. Mornings meant taking her medication, a small collection of bottles on her nightstand that she knew better than her own reflection. School meant keeping her head down, books clutched to her chest like a shield. Afternoons meant home, rest, and sometimes a trip to the doctor with her mother, who always wore the same worried expression. There was no room in her life for sports, for parties, for the loud, messy business of being a teenager. There was only survival, one slow day at a time. Her classmates didn't bully her, not really. They just ignored her. To them, she wasn't a person. She was a condition. The sick girl, the one you lower your voice around, as if loud noises might shatter her. And then there was the kid named Mikey. Mikey was the opposite of invisible. He was loud, obnoxious, and seemed to have a personal mission to make everyone around him miserable. He was the kind of bully who didn't need a reason. He just enjoyed the feeling of power. He had pushed Anya in the hallway once, making her drop her books, and had just laughed when she struggled to bend down and pick them up, her breath catching in her throat. She didn't hate him for it. She felt sorry for him, actually. People who were that angry on the inside usually were hurting on the inside. But that didn't make him any less unpleasant to be around. One Tuesday afternoon, Anya took a different route home. The main road was noisy with construction, and her head was pounding. So she turned down a narrow side street she'd passed 100 times but never used. It was a shortcut through an older part of town, lined with empty warehouses and tall, chain-link fences. It was quiet, which was exactly what she needed. She was about halfway down the street when she heard the voices. They weren't friendly voices. They were sharp, mean, and full of threat. Anya's first instinct was to freeze, to turn around and go back the way she came. But something made her peer around the corner of a dumpster instead. There they were. 3 older teenagers, the kind with hard eyes and no hesitation in their movements. They had someone cornered against a graffiti-covered wall. It took her a second to recognize the kid pinned there, his back flat against the cold brick, his usual swagger completely gone. It was Mikey. His face was pale, his eyes wide with a terror she had never seen on him before. He wasn't the bully, no. He was just a scared kid. "Empty your pockets," one of the older teens growled, his voice low and dangerous. "Don't make us ask again." Mikey's hands were shaking as he fumbled in his jacket. I don't have much, I swear." Anya's heart hammered against her ribs. It was a different kind of pounding than her illness caused. This was pure animal fear. Her mind screamed at her to run, to hide, to call the police. She was sick. She was weak. What could she possibly do? She was the girl who got winded walking upstairs. These were 3 big guys who looked like they knew how to hurt people. Getting involved was suicide. It was stupid. It was She looked at Mikey's face again. She saw the tears welling up in his eyes, the complete and utter helplessness. And in that moment, he wasn't the kid who had pushed her. He was just a person, alone and terrified. And she was the only other person here. Before she could talk herself out of it, before logic and fear could win, her body moved. She stepped out from behind the dumpster, her footsteps quiet on the cracked pavement. "Hey," she said. Her voice came out soft, but in the silence of that alley, it cut through like a bell. All three of the older teens turned. Mikey's head snapped up, his eyes going even wider when he saw who it was. For a second, everyone just stared. Then the leader of the group, a tall guy with a scar above his eye, let out a laugh. It was a mean, ugly sound. "Well, well, well," he said, stepping away from Mikey and toward her. "Look what we have here. You lost, little girl?" Anya's legs felt like jelly, but she held her ground. "Leave him alone," she said. Her voice was quiet, but steady. The other two guys snickered. The leader kept walking until he was just a few feet away, looking down at her. He looked her up and down, taking in her small frame, her pale face, the way she seemed to sway slightly in the breeze. "And what are you gonna do about it, huh? You gonna cry on me? Call your mommy?" He glanced back at his friends, grinning. "Look, guys, it's the glass girl." He reached out and gave her shoulder a hard shove. It wasn't meant to hurt, not really. It was meant to knock her down, to prove a point, to show his friends how tough he was. And for a split second, Anya did stumble. The force of it sent a shock through her weak body, but something else happened in that split second. The shove, the contact, the threat. It flipped a switch inside her that she had kept hidden for a very long time. It wasn't anger that flooded through her. It was something else. It was memory. She remembered early mornings in her backyard, the grass wet with dew. She remembered her father's gentle hands guiding her arms, his voice soft in her ear. "Don't fight the force," he would say. "Become part of it. Use it. They give you their weight. You give it right back." The world slowed down. The teens' laughter faded into a distant hum. Anya's fear didn't disappear, but it settled, like a pond becoming still. Her breathing, which had been panicked, suddenly found a deep, calm rhythm her doctors had never seen. Her posture shifted, just slightly. Her weight dropped, settling low and solid. Her eyes, usually so tired and distant, focused with a sharpness that was almost frightening. The teen, still grinning, reached out to shove her again. This time, he grabbed her shoulder to really push her hard, to send her sprawling into the dirt. But the moment his hand closed around her jacket, it was like grabbing smoke. Anya didn't try to pull away. She moved with his push, turning her body in a smooth, circular motion. Her hand came up, not to strike, but to guide. She caught his wrist, stepped past him, and used his own momentum against him. It happened in a single fluid second. One moment he was standing, the world's toughest guy. The next, he was on the ground, flat on his back, the wind knocked out of him. Anya was beside him, one knee gently pinning his arm in a position that made it clear that if he struggled, he would be the one hurting himself. It was a basic jiu-jitsu hold, a controlled position. But to the two other teens watching, it looked like magic. They stared, their mouths hanging open. Their leader, the big, scary guy, was looking up at the pale, thin girl with an expression of pure, bewildered shock. He couldn't move. He couldn't understand what had just happened. One second he was in charge, the next he was on the ground, completely helpless, held there by someone who looked like she needed a good meal and a week of sleep. Anya looked at him. There was no anger in her eyes, no triumph, just a calm, quiet focus. "Get your friends," she said softly, "and go somewhere else." She released his arm and stood up, stepping back. The guy scrambled to his feet, his face red with a mix of humiliation and fear. He looked at his friends, who were already backing away. Without another word, the three of them turned and ran, their footsteps echoing and then fading into silence. The alley was suddenly very, very quiet. Anya stood there, her breath returning to its normal, shallow rhythm. She felt a little dizzy, but it was from adrenaline, not sickness. She turned to look at Mikey. He was still pressed against the wall, but now he was staring at her, like she had just grown a second head. His face was a mess of emotions, shock, confusion, and something that looked a lot like awe. She didn't say anything to him. She just gave him a small, tired nod, pulled her jacket tighter around herself, and continued walking down the alley toward her street. She left him there, alone with his thoughts, the silence of the alley now filled with 1,000 unasked questions. The glass girl had just proven she was made of something a lot stronger.